Welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. I'm speaking with Nirinjan Kaur again today. We're going to be talking more about her astrology-based life coaching. She is obviously a brilliant singer and has been sharing mantras with the world for longer than I have, since birth really. She's taking a little break from doing that, and she has entered counseling school, which is really interesting. She's going to talk about that. She talks a little bit about where she feels like her music journey is going. But I didn't talk about this on the podcast, but I thought I would share this because I thought about it later, is I have been through periods of my life where I have felt that it is necessary to stop doing something in order to reflect on it. And I think that that's always a really useful thing to do, because to just keep doing something when it's not feeling right is obviously not a great feeling thing to do. I remember in the episode that we did with Jai Jagdish, she mentioned this idea of a fallow season of the artist, where it's like you've reaped all the crops and it's before you reseed the soil to just let the land rest. And I really love this visual, and I think about it for myself a lot. So let's get into this conversation with Nirinjan. I had a few people ask me when I was going to do a follow-up because our last one was a little short. So this one is the full length, and I think you will really enjoy it. All right, here we go. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to part 2.
Hello. Thank you.
I had a couple people ask me if I was going to be finishing the one that we started before the podcast episode.
And did we end the last one like saying that we were going to
I
do?
think people just felt like they wanted to hear more from you because it was only like a half hour or something.
Oh, right. Because like
Yeah.
they messed up the scheduling. Oh, I see. Oh, well, that's nice.
There weren't any cliffhangers or anything like that, but
I was like, oh
yeah.
God, maybe say I don't even know like exactly what we talked about. But
We talked about astrology. We talked about your astrology. You hadn't started school again, so
yeah, that
we
was
could chat
before.
about that.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about you. You're the main event here.
Okay.
Let's talk about you, Nirinjan.
Okay, then. Well, I'll have to adjust when you say let's talk about me. Talker. I can just talk for like 2 hours, but I won't. Well, I mean, astrology, we talked, I guess, about astrology and the way I related to it like last time. And I still love astrology, and I'm still doing it, still doing the astrology-based life coaching, which is so fun and awesome, and I love it. And also it kind of, I was enjoying it so much, and it was kind of like moving me in a direction when I was working with people that was like, kind of like, there were readings and there was coaching, but it was moving more in the direction of counseling. And I was feeling that, like that was just the space that was naturally being opened. That was the natural kind of like, I was getting positive feedback from people that they were having that experience with me. And I was like, I could feel it too. I could feel that space kind of starting to birth, but I was like, I'm not a trained counselor. Like people need training for this. Like like I have to like know what I'm doing. And right now it's like
What
you can
was
tell that.
the space? Like how did you go from feeling comfortable to like this is beyond my depth? What was the difference?
That's a good question.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, well, it is. It's like, so, you're very like perceptive and like really following it. Like, yeah, that's a key moment. It was, I'd say, like, let's see what the best, most succinct way to describe it would be. I mean, for one thing, I guess I relate to the practice of astrology. Like I relate to astrology as a tool, to be used to help people, gain more self-awareness. And with that self-awareness, that can help them figure out how to move forward in life in the way that they're feeling challenged. And, anytime people would come to me to get an astrology reading, they wouldn't just come, they don't usually come for no reason. Sometimes they do. They're just like, well, it's been a while. I should check in with the stars, but usually it's like they're doing it because something's up. They're feeling something's happening, and they're like, they're having a challenge. They want to do something better. They are suffering in some way, and they want some help in some way. And so, whenever people come, that's what we naturally end up talking about and focusing on. And so usually they'd come to me, they'd be like, tell me what I should do.
Mm.
And I'm just like, no. Like that's no, I'm not, don't give me that power, I'm gonna be wrong if I try and tell you what to do. I was noticing that because of the astrology and because of the kind of the power of the tool itself, people just are like, oh good, it knows more than I know about myself, so tell me. And I was just like, no. What I was doing is what I started naturally doing is hearing from people about themselves, and then like putting their chart over top of that, being like, whoa, it's like, oh, that makes, and it's always like, oh, it brings their chart to life. Then it's like, oh, what they're saying makes so much sense about their personality because of everything that's at play in their chart. It's like a personality chart that comes to life when they tell me about themselves. And then I get to reflect back to them who they're saying that they are, but they don't see it. We don't see ourselves. And so what ended up happening was this kind of like problem solving, helping, personal growth through a space of empathy and listening. And it's like I started to, and then what started happening is that inevitably, when that space of empathy and listening and like reflecting and guidance starts to happen, when the person starts to become awoken and starts to be like, oh my God, I'm realizing things about myself, and now I know what I want to do. It's like as that's a sensitive process. It's very vulnerable for people. People open up their deepest, fears and stuff they feel shameful about, stuff they feel afraid of, and that's navigating that territory with people is delicate business. And that's why counselors are trained, because so that you can navigate very safely with people. And also counselors are trained to not just deal in the realm of epiphany, but in the realm of continued sustained help even after the epiphany has been brought. And what I found was that like I wanted more training and tools to be able to really offer very safe space for people, which I was already doing pretty well, but there are things that I've learned now, and I will continue learning to do it much, much better. And then also learning how to continue to work with people. Like with counseling, people come back. Sorry. With counseling, people come back, and you kind of get to be with them throughout their change and growth process. Whereas the astro sessions, it's like people come for epiphany and self-clarity, and they have a direction, and then you never see them again. And that's fine also. If that's what people need, that's fine. But oftentimes, especially with more behavioral type therapies, it's kind of like, well, sometimes people need continued support to check back in. What are your goals? What has your progress been like? How's the change going? So I felt like I wanted to kind of grow into that more. So I guess, does that answer your question?
Yeah. That's really interesting. So you were feeling a little, well, I interrupted you in the middle of a thought there. So that was the little asterisk, but you were saying like you were feeling like you needed more. So you went and got some training. Yes, or you're getting some training.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like at this point right now, what day is it today? It's like the end of May. So I'm like about 2.5 months into a year-long program. Yeah, it'll end next March, and then I kind of start have to get a certain amount of supervised hours, and and get all registered with the right associations, and to essentially be licensed, even though licensing is different in Canada. So, but anyway, yeah, so it'll be a journey, but I'm on that journey, and it feels really good, and it's already nourishing and improving my sessions with clients on a daily basis. And it's
that's so interesting. That's so neat. It's one of those things where I feel like if you visited yourself 5 years ago and was like, you're going to be a counselor, would you have been like, huh? or would that have been like, oh yeah, I could see myself doing that?
I probably would have been like, that makes sense. That makes sense as something maybe I could do, but I wouldn't have thought that I was capable of it at that point. It would have sounded too daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So well, not crazy, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
Crazy in that yay. Do you have are you drawn to a certain type of counseling? Because I imagine there's a range of specialties, or are you going to keep it pretty general or see how it goes?
I think I'm going to see kind of how it goes. I mean, before I started my program, they had me sign up for, they have you pick from 5 or 6 different general kind of counseling options, which are career counseling, intimacy and relationships counseling, I think youth and family counseling. What are the other ones? I'm not remembering at this exact moment. There are several, but it was kind of general frameworks like that. I mean,
do they have marriage counseling anymore, or are they calling that intimacy and
relationships counseling? I wonder if they, yeah, I don't know. I have papers right here. I'm like, no, it's not. But and I think maybe it was loss. Substance abuse and addiction.
Okay.
It's a big one. And then other ones that I'm not thinking of right now. But anyway, so I had to pick one out of the few big headings. And I was like, I don't really know, but I guess the one that seems closest to what I'd be interested in would be intimacy and relationships counseling. So I'm
sounds right.
Yeah, I think so, right? And it's I mean, I like to think so, but so maybe I might end up kind of specializing in that. I might not. It's already been an amazing 2.5 months. Every time we learn about different kind of genres of counseling, I'm like, oh, this one, this one, the best. My first, the program I'm taking is there are 16 kind of modules. And the first module that I took was substance abuse and addiction, and it was super intense, but so profound and awesome. And I was like, maybe I should do this. But then I was like, I could. But then it's then I'm in the downtown east side, and
oh, I was gonna that's your hang up. I was thinking well, I don't know that you have a ton of experience with substance abuse.
Yeah, I mean, that's another side of it. But that's another side of it. But after kind of delving into it a little bit, it's kind of it is ideal for a substance abuse counselor to have gone through the particular type of dark night of the soul, that particular challenge. But interestingly, substance abuse and addiction really ties into so many different aspects of mental health.
Yeah.
And it's it ties into so much other stuff, and trauma, and trauma mainly.
Yeah.
It's kind of essentially it's a coping mechanism, and there are very many, and it's there's also so many types of addictions that aren't just substance abuse. There's like lots of behavioral addictions that can be sometimes even, sometimes even more life-threatening and all-encompassing, and then like super, super difficult than even the substances. And like gambling addiction, for example, like somebody, I was hearing of somebody who like struggled with a cocaine addiction and a gambling addiction, and they were saying that actually it was much easier to sobriety from cocaine was actually much easier than becoming recovery from gambling. And it was just like, whoa, because the behavioral addictions can actually be even more, take over even more. So anyway, interestingly, it was fascinating, and I thought it was like it really got all the way down.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm interested in. Like that's what really interests me most about counseling, about this work, is like being able to go all the way down. I get a little irritated with like kind of surface level coaching or counseling that's like, okay, well, let's just help you manage your day, and let's just think of a solution to this one little thing. Like, oh my God, shoot. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, because that's what a lot of people genuinely, sometimes that's what people need, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I have nothing like against that, but for me personally, like it really gets my juices flowing if we can go to like, if we get to go navigate the deepest, juiciest things that really make us transform as human beings, and like really unleash our deepest potential. And so, the heaviest things tend to be the heaviest growth. And so that's why, during that course, going substance abuse and addiction has a way of like, if you're going through that, it has a way of like, well, then you're going to go all the way, likely going to have to go all the way down. And same with trauma and recovery. One of the courses I took was trauma and recovery, and that was even more intense than substance abuse and addiction. But again, I liked it the most because it was like, yeah, this is where we get to go to the deepest places, and that's where the most powerful work takes place. And so, but that's also why I was drawn into counseling, because I was naturally, in my work with people, and the people that were being drawn to me, they naturally were like, woo, we're going all the way down. That's just what we're going to do naturally. I'm like, whoa. Yes, but we're going to swim in these waters together. I need to be a very competent like leader here. Like I need to, like really know how to establish safety really, 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 really well, in order to be able to navigate those. So that's why I started taking the course, and I'm like, okay, gonna go in with all of our safety tethers, with all of our regulation tools, with all of our like, all of our grounding, all of our everything, so that we can just, that's what I want. I want to get like really well trained to get a lot of experience, and so that's been really helpful for me too, just in my own recovery. I had some really negative experiences with therapists that were like harmful to me. And I was just like, this is not how this is not how this should be going. And so there's one of the other things that drew me to
You mean like recently oh, okay. So you sought therapy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, after everything crashed and burned with Joe, I mean, it's like the first thing everybody's saying is like, oh shit, we got trauma. We didn't realize we had. Okay. Okay, everybody see a therapist. Everybody find a therapist right now. Task 1. So I did. But I saw several like coaches and therapists, and I just found them to not be able to understand. They like could not orient to what I was going through, and like they couldn't orient. And I was just like, you don't get it. I felt like they did not understand, and they were not able to adequately guide me, like help me at all. And it actually ended up being more harmful than good. And so after that, I was just like, okay, well, I feel really gun shy about therapists. even though I'm sure there are fantastic ones out there, but I don't want to go like testing the waters and like, my trust was shaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Testing the waters. And so like, I'm just, I'm sure I will. I'm open to a fantastic therapist coming into my life and totally having a fantastic therapeutic relationship in that way. Great. Super like excited about that happening in the future. But as of right now, my program, like it's in person and there's a whole group of us, and the teachers are all counselors, and we even get to do practice sessions with each other, and there's a lot of like safety in the counseling space being opened up in class. And so I actually have found that it has been, and it's also been training me to counsel myself, which is what I need most after cult trauma. It's like, oh, I actually need to know how to not give my power away to anyone ever right now, and just like learn how to counsel myself. So the environment of trust and safety in the group mixed with learning how to counsel myself is like, has been really, really therapeutic, really challenging, really humility building. And so.
Wow. I was going to ask several questions and they
Sorry,
floated away. No, well, I was
I
interested in what
drove
you
them
were
away.
saying. No, I was
Okay.
interested in what you were saying. Okay, well, oh, right. The first one was when we were talking about addiction. I was curious if you related to that in some way, like if you have perceived yourself being addicted, and because I know I have, and not in the traditional sense. So I was just curious if maybe that was a reason why that was appealing to you as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that if any human being says that they haven't experienced addiction, I think that they're kind of fooling themselves, you know, in, in some way, at least it's small.
They want you to tell them how to manage their day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really. It's okay. I respect everybody's like that, absolutely. But yeah, I kind of, it's like, I think it's more like a lack of education of what addiction is. And it was, some people may not have, but I mean, if you haven't, I'm kind of like, well, then do it. Well, then you should, because like part of you, of the human psyche, that it's good to understand, even if it's about yourself. And I'm not saying like go get addicted to like a hard substance or something, but I would say, mm, I mean, several things I've experienced that relationship with. I mean, one cool thing that I learned was like kind of like defining what addiction is and kind of the symptomology of it. I feel like now I have to like list it off really super accurately, but but like generally speaking, it's like when you have a behavior or you engage with a substance that helps you to cope with emotional pain, that helps you to cope with something that's really difficult. Um, but then you end up engaging with that behavior or substance in such a way, like to a degree, or often enough, that it starts to have that engagement with that behavior or substance starts to have a harmful effect on like your relationships, your productivity, your self-care, your ability to work and sustain yourself. When that thing starts to be harmful in some way to your primary life, happy life functions, then that's when that's kind of generally when it's called an addiction.
Mm.
And so that can really be anything. I mean, it can be digital, like social media, it's like you want to be spending time with your partner or your kids, but you're scrolling through Facebook on your phone and you're not interacting with them. And then, that affects your relationship with them. And so technically at that point, it's an addiction because it's interfering with how you want to live and your values. It's interfering with like really your values of how you want to live. Do you need to blow your nose?
I need to sneeze, but I'm muted, so you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, do it, sneeze. Um, um, so with with that kind of framework in mind, I would say there are a lot of things in my life that I've related to in that way. And nothing like to the point of serious extremity, to the point where it has like taken completely over my life and caused me to lose a whole bunch of relationships, and or like, burn a whole bunch of bridges, make me financially destitute, or make me lose employment or something like that. Nothing to that level of extremity. um However, things have definitely affected my like my relationships and my ability to feel regulated or take care of myself, and have so for example, like sweets, like eating too many sweets, I find that to be like one of my coping mechanisms. That if I'm feeling like a lot of emotional pain and I'm stressed, I'm like, okay, I have to get cookies, like that's what I'm gonna have to do. But I have a very, very sensitive, like parasympathetic kind of nervous system response. And if I have chocolate or if I have like refined sugar, it's like not okay for my body. It really like throws me off. It upsets my emotional regulation. It ups my anxiety. It can create insomnia for me, which affects me in all sorts of ways. And but when I still choose to do it, even though I know it's going to affect my life badly, sometimes I will still choose to do it anyway,
Mhm.
and accept that harmful effect and still be harmed by it, but if I choose to do it anyway. And that's when I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that with sweets for sure. Refined sugar, I ended that one a long time ago because it was too much for me. But like even with like chocolate, like I'll still fall into that one, and I'll still like have these little tiny mini relapses sometimes. It'll affect me, and I'll like, it'll totally throw me off kilter, and I'm like, oh, like yeah, okay, well, there was that one. Even, I mean, a larger one, which is kind of controversial, is kind of like, you know, even just in within 3HO, getting like addicted to like my daily practice and like meditating for amounts of time that are more than that are not as that are like more than is necessary.
Mm.
And it's like it's like yoga and meditation are fantastic. They can be tools for regulation. They're tools for healing. They're fantastic. I wouldn't call that like a harmful substance in any way, but it's just like, when you start to relate to it as like a bypassing of painful emotions, it's like rather than actually dealing with what you're feeling and talking to people and approaching your relationships and developing like a safe space that like actually moving through life in a way that feels regulated and consistent. Doing like really intensive yoga and meditation workshops that just essentially make you just really high, but you're still not really actually dealing with your life.
Mhm.
I think that can be categorized as an addiction, but it would more be like in the realm of kind of spiritual bypassing. Nobody relates to it as an addiction. Maybe people relate to exercise addiction. That's the thing.
Yeah.
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 But no one's going to say exercise is harmful because you need exercise, but
Right. Well, like, I mean, it can get harmful to the point of like
yeah,
injury and yeah.
exactly. Well, that's when technically it becomes an addiction because it
Right.
starts to like harm you.
Mm.
But it's with yoga and meditation, it's like it's a tough line to draw because it's like, well, at what point is it harmful? It's like, well, I don't know. Like, at what point is it harmful? Is it harmful to you? Like, where are you at right now? Are you unhappy? Like,
Right,
well,
right.
it's not helping.
Uh, so yeah, that's funny. I was thinking of your counseling thing in a funny way because I was also one of those who when especially when three was it 3HO? Yeah, 3HO said that they were going to pay for everyone to have therapy at some point, right? They
Mhm.
were going to give everybody
Yeah.
a stipend.
Mhm.
So and I also haven't had like great success with therapists in the past. So I got a referral from a friend and he was like, "Oh yeah, she's really great. I love her." And did like however I did like I don't know a couple months of sessions with her and she was really sweet, but I had her fill out the form and they're like, she is not a certified whatever, I was like,
Mhm.
why did
Mhm.
you recommend her? Oh, I billed them for someone else. Because I thought he had already like submitted the paperwork and she was approved, you know?
Oh,
So
I see. Right. Yes.
I was like, that was a really funny recommendation. Thank you. But you will now, ironically, you will now be someone that if they wanted to use this funding could go to, right?
Oh,
If it's
yes,
still
absolutely.
available.
Yes, it
Yeah.
would be. Yes.
So
Mhm.
that's sort of a funny, like, I
That's
don't
a
know,
funny turn of
twist of
events.
fate, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting too, because like it also like one of the therapists that I saw was like trained in a therapeutic modality. So they're like trained in a specific modality like somatic therapy and
Hmm.
like I don't know all the credentials that they had, but I know that that was one of them. And it's like that, that was great. They did that really well. I think they were trained in some other kind of body healing things. And it was interesting. It's like they did a lot of things well, but in the literally the first month of my program that I took of the counselor training, I was just like suddenly seeing like all the things that they didn't do and that they
Hmm.
obviously hadn't been trained to do.
Hmm.
And because they hadn't done the things, it was like that's why it didn't work.
Hmm.
And I was just like, and we also learned about like there's this like pie chart that we were given that was like it showed that like after tons of like evidence-based like research of therapies, it was and clients and people's progress and recovery and whatnot. It's like a pie chart saying like how how much each each aspect of therapy actually helps people.
Hmm.
The therapeutic modality, meaning like, are you doing somatic therapy? Are you doing EMDR? Are you doing,
Oh, that's what
IFS?
mine did, EMDR. That
EMDR
was the
with the
thing.
eye and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. EMDR is super cool, but that's like a therapeutic modality.
Yeah.
There's like, psychoanalysis, there's Adlerian therapy, there's like humanistic approach, existential approach. There's like all these different ways you can work with people that have all these different techniques and Gestalt and all these other things. Um, but it was saying like the therapeutic modality, actually, research has shown that like it only matters 15%. And 40% is like the client and their life circumstances, like just where they're at and what's going on with them. And 30% is the therapeutic relationship,
That makes
which
sense.
means like how the counselor shows up, their accurate empathic understanding of the person, their ability to create safety, um their ability to have like the respect that how the client feels respected, how they feel accurately empathically understood, how they feel encouraged, and also the level of like unconditional positive regard, like that they actually feel like encouraged, like they can grow
Hmm.
themselves. That's the biggest, or not the biggest, but that and their life and how they feel seen and held in the relationship, and the trust like between them and the counselor is actually the biggest most important um, source of change. And that the modality is important too, because like certain things, different strokes for different folks, like certain things work for certain people. EMDR is like tons of people swear by it. IFS swear by it. Somatic therapy swear by it. So many people who do these different therapies, it's the only way. You can't like recover if you don't do this thing. It's like, well, you can, just it's got to work for you, and you got to feel safe, and you got to trust the therapist. So
IFS, what's that?
IFS is internal family systems. It's like this
Oh,
actually
is
super.
that the Osho thing or no?
No, I
No,
don't think, I don't know if Osho goes into it, but it's this
no, it's
thing.
family constellations.
Oh yeah, that's a
That's
little different.
different. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's funny because it doesn't necessarily have to do with family. It's actually just a way of looking at the self, that you have like a core self. that's like, it's like when you relate to your core self, you feel like compassion, courage, confidence, clarity, connectedness, like creativity, your core self. And then, when people are talking about their life, they're like, well, I kind of felt like part of me wanted to go and like talk to that person, and part of me wanted to do that, but part of me was also like knew that wasn't right, or like part of me said this and part of me said that. IFS is just like leaning into that and being like, okay, tell me more about that part. Why did that part, what is that part saying? Like, where do they exist in your body? And that's kind of has somatic references, but it's like, where, how old does that part? How old is that part of you think you are? And it's like, you kind of talk to that part and kind of really hear what it has to say. And part of the essence of that modality is that like there's no part is a bad part. So like every single part of you that seems to be they seem to be in conflict with each other, in conflict with what you want. And but really, if you talk to it, it just wants to protect you. It's just trying to help you. And the idea is that you kind of want to hear it out, and like you want to kind of be able to accept all of, like, kind of make all of your parts be able to be on the same frequency as your core self, and be able to really like there's one part they talk about your core self, and then these like protector part of yourselves, and then there's like the exile, which is like that part of yourself that's like where the shame is and the trauma lives, and you don't want anybody to see it. And the idea is that to like really integrate and embrace the exile, and like let the protectors know that they've done a fantastic job, but now you're going to integrate the exile and everything's going to be okay, and that's kind of where the healing happens. So that's the general IFS in like a 2-minute description.
Lovely. Are you familiar with Byron Katie's work? I just discovered her like a few months ago. Well, for real. I'd heard her name before, but
I feel like I'm the same. I've kind of heard her name, but I don't
yeah.
know.
It's really interesting because when we were talking about addiction, I was thinking she talks about how people are addicted to certain thoughts. So anyway,
That's interesting. That could also kind of be in the realm of OCD, like obsessive compulsive disorder, addicted to certain thoughts. I mean, that can be kind of like like an obsession with a thought, an obsession with a concept. It's like you don't want to let it go because it's unresolved. Like, oh, I'm obsessed with it because it's like I'm addicted to it and obsessed with it because you just want to resolve it. And it's like, cool, all right, well, like let's lean into what that thought has to say. Let's lean in. I don't know what she does, but
yeah, no, she does a really interesting process. I don't know. I think it'd be cool for you to check out. It's very interesting. It's yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like nothing else that I've seen, although it is similar to some work that I've done, but also like different. She's very interesting. But
cool.
yeah, she talks about like thought. She talks about thought being addicted to thought in terms of like how you relate to people. So like I don't know. I was just watching a video about some woman who was upset with her drunk friend, and her basically being addicted to helping people who don't want to be helped, or like I need being a savior for people. I mean, stuff like that.
I see. Oh yeah.
Is that a cello?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a cello. I got into like before I started my program when I had more time. I was like, oh, like I've always loved the cello, and like I should start like learning it. And I like took it up for a bit. I like rented a cello at like a music store, and I was like, cool. And I like, for a few weeks kind of dived into it a little bit, and like, learned how to hold the bow and started to like learn the notes, and I was enjoying it. But then my program started and I was like, well, that was fun. More time for that anymore.
That's awesome. Do you also play guitar? I don't think I've ever seen you play guitar.
I enough to kind of get by. It's not like my like instrument of like, I'm not going to go up and do a guitar performance of like, but I kind of strum. It's more of like I play guitar in a similar way that I played the harmonium, where it's just like I played it as like backup for singing,
Yeah.
to hold hold a rhythm and hold the kind of chords to, but nothing. I didn't develop it as an instrument the way I developed my voice as an instrument. My voice was kind of my primary instrument.
Yeah.
I did play the piano when I was young too. But I I don't know, at some point when I got into like high school or something, I just kind of stopped playing, but it was a helpful foundational musical.
Oh, you played for quite a while.
Well, I probably played for maybe 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
No, because I started when I was kind of like, no, it must have been, yeah, when I entered high school, I stopped. So I think around then, I don't know. I don't even remember looking back. I'm like, I don't know. It was several years.
But you were in high school in India, so you were taking piano lessons while, or am I getting the
Well,
chronology wrong?
well, I did 2 years of high school in a public high school here in Vancouver.
Oh,
Before I went and did 3 years in India. So I
okay.
think I was not playing piano anymore by the time I was in high school, which was must have been when I was like 13. And I think I started playing the piano at like maybe 7, 8.
Okay.
So, I did it, but it wasn't, I think I remember I got to the level of being able to play like Furelise and like, the kind of, but like that, I didn't like go much beyond that. But
My
it definitely awoke my musical like passion and helped give a great musical foundation for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, my dad wanted me to start piano lessons really early. His mom was a piano teacher and he never like did piano lessons because his mom was a piano teacher, so he always wanted that for me. And his big pitch was like, "You'll be able to accompany yourself when you sing." I was like, "Oh, this is
Oh,
great." And so year after year would pass. I'm like, "At what point will I be singing with this?" Because that's not what anyone's teaching me.
no, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
That's honestly why I took up guitar because I watch people like sing and play piano. I'm like, fuck. Like now, but I was like, I can't do that. It's in the same way that I'm like in class, I'm watching people like taking notes. I'm like, I can't take notes. Like it's too distracting. Like my brain, like,
Really?
oh yeah,
Oh, see,
can't do
I
it.
can't concentrate unless I am taking notes.
Yeah, different brains, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The second I like divert my attention from like what the teacher's saying and I like write something down, I completely miss what they're saying. My attention
Wow.
can't do it at the same time. Yeah, it's very interesting because then like someone else in my class, like she has to be doodling, like and making she makes these little, I love her. She makes like these, she takes the wax coverings from the Baby Bell cheeses and like forms like little animals while she's listening to like the lectures in class because that's the only way she can focus is if
Oh,
she's like
wow.
creating something. And there I am, I literally have to like, I can have a stress ball and I can be like a stress ball, but like that's it for my other stimulation. Like
Wow. Yeah. That's super interesting.
and for whatever reason I can play the harmonium while I'm singing, I can play the guitar while I'm singing, but I mean I could probably play the piano while I'm singing if I really tried for a long time, but I have not found success with that. It's just too,
Oh.
my brain, as soon as one hand's doing like one complicated thing and another hand's doing another complicated thing and I'm singing a complicated thing, I'm losing God. I'm like, no, my brain, it just drops off the map.
It is really freeing in a sense to sing without having to play something as well. I do
It
like that
is.
experience. Sometimes you just need to hold down the fort, but like it is kind of nice to have other people take care of that. So I get
It
that.
is. It is. It's true. Actually, I actually noticed that it was a new confidence thing for me when I started singing. Like it was like I needed my safety harmonium, like my safety blanket, But I was like, but if
To
I'm
sit
singing,
behind something. Yeah.
and then as soon as I could only focus on my voice, suddenly I was like, oh, this is a little scary. It opens up. It opens up a lot more sensitivity to the voice and a lot more attention.
Yeah. Is that when you were like playing with Matthew and Ramdas? You weren't playing harmonium as much, right? Or at
Yeah,
all?
yeah, at a certain point when, yeah, it was actually when I started playing with Matthew and Ramdas that I ditched the harmonium because, not entirely, I still would also use it other times, but
Yeah.
yeah, because like Matthew would be looping and like it would, and he was doing drones with the cello and it was just like the harmonium was just obsolete. It didn't do it. It was not needed. It was just
Yeah.
kind of filling space that was already being filled. And then we were touring and I didn't want to have to like carry it around. That was obnoxious. And so I was just like, well, how about if I just don't? Oh, so freeing. I was like, ooh, but then got the looper and started looping my own voice, which was fun. But then I started hiding behind the looper, and I had to kind of break out of that then.
When was that? What year that was that?
Back, God, that I was touring with the looper.
Yeah.
That was probably because I think from To the Heart was released in like 2017, so it was around that time. So like 2016, 2017. No, not 2017. What am I talking about? To the Heart was released in, was it 2017? Yeah, okay. So it was before then, probably like 2015, because I started using the looper with Ramdas as well, when it was like me and Matthew and Ramdas, I think. So I think, and that must have been around 2015 through 2017 kind of time.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Cool time. um, do you have anything else that you want to share? I feel like we accomplished our getting to hear more from you, but is there anything kind of brewing or that you're excited about besides the counseling stuff or um,
Um,
I
hmm.
really put you on the spot.
Oh, no. I like being put on. It's
Oh,
exciting.
excellent. Okay.
Yes, no, it's good. It's like ooh. Yeah, like I guess I mean, back to that question that I kind of didn't really fully answer earlier when you said like what am I drawn to, kind of what general area am I drawn to with counseling, and also a lot of people ask me about music, and
Mm.
whether I'm going to do music again, and I guess, I kind of feel like those are loose ends that people always are asking me, and they
Mm.
are loose ends. There are also kind of questions that come up for me personally as well. Both of those things, and it's interesting that they're kind of connected. The music, am I going to do music again, and how am I going to do counseling? Uh,
Mm.
you know,
How are they connected?
well, they're connected in the sense that like they both point at how specifically do I want to work, like do the things I'm passionate about?
Yeah.
In what direction am I going to put those things? It's like I'm passionate about working with people and the human condition, and I'm passionate about art and expression. And like several people have been like, so are you gonna like put those two together? Are you gonna do music therapy, with people? And I'm kind of like, I don't know what that would look like. I guess there's like a whole like art therapy world, right? It's another modality, right?
Yeah.
Sounds beautiful and amazing. I don't know. There's music therapy is a whole thing that I could conceivably be trained in, and I'm not saying no. Maybe, sure, maybe I'd be open to that. But I guess, yeah, I guess there's kind of, because there's also the whole one, the part of the like, it's interesting because also my journey of self-growth, of like personal growth, and my journey forward into who I am and what I want to offer the world is intrinsically, it's tied in with my art. That's
Mm.
part of who I am. And part of my recovery from, 3HO and everything that I experienced in my life and the complexity of that has been that I kind of stopped singing. And I
Mm.
was like, I feel like I don't know how to do it. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of like, I'm a fraud. And it's like when I have a freeze response when I start to even sing at all, oftentimes. And it's like that I know that that's tied in with my healing and recovery. And I know that they're moving together, they're holding hands. So I know that as I progress in the realm of my own therapeutic process, my music is also going to come back in a new way. And I'm going to find my way forward with both of those things at the same time. They're connected. And interestingly, I've found myself like gravitating towards trauma work with people, like towards that as a thing that I might want to kind of go towards in the realm of counseling. But specifically, there just really are not a lot of counselors that know how to work with people coming out of highly controlled religious organizations, cult organizations. And even I noticed that there's a lot of crossover between trauma from like abusive relationships and trauma from cult abuse. Is very, and also family abuse, like parent child abuse. There's a lot of very similar trauma, because a lot of more like CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is more like trauma over time, even trauma that's not necessarily considered like traumatic, where it's like people don't necessarily think of like brainwashing and indoctrination and sexual repression and like the isolation that's caused by being in a cult. Like people don't consider that to be trauma necessarily, usually, or at least don't know how to recognize it.
Yeah.
Or people like, most of the time people they're just like what, but you were never raped or physically abused, or you weren't like a prisoner of war, you didn't like murder people in combat, so like, you weren't like forced to, so then it's not trauma. What do you mean?
The other thing people, do you notice the other thing people take away from, well, I don't know, I've noticed because I watched so many cult documentaries in the wake of all this, like just so I could understand more. And what I found so interesting are people commenting like, wow, can you imagine being so stupid that you would believe all this, or like so crazy, or like, I'm so glad I'm not that gullible, or stuff like that. I'm like, oh, you don't understand that everyone's being fooled by something.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like you actually, and also people tend to not understand like the incredible drive of humans to experience a sense of belonging. It's like, you know what? Like, if you have experience having a similar way of thinking and ideology with like a massive group of people,
Yeah.
you get to experience connection and like some sort of congruence of belief. Like that is so incredibly powerful
Right.
biologically.
Right.
For us, we're programmed for tribe.
Right.
We're
Right.
programmed for that. And it's like, if you feel accepted and understood and included and loved, and you feel just this connection with people and this congruence, then it's like, that's a drug of its own. It's like, and that it's like, it's like people, it's the same kind of a thing where it's like, well, people relate to addiction as like a moral issue. It's like, well, if you can see that it's harming your life, just stop doing it. You obviously don't understand. It's like, you must just be weak.
Right. Right.
Well, you obviously do not understand what it's
Right.
like.
Well, and it has to do with whether the thing that you're doing is socially acceptable or not,
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah. It's like, even, yeah, absolutely. A lot of like, like people suffer from gambling addiction with cryptocurrency, with like stock trading cryptocurrency.
mm,
It's new. They're like, well, no, I'm just making money. I'm just being a modern business person. Meanwhile, they're like losing their lives.
mm.
It's just like, no, you're addicted and it's harming you. It's like, I can't also just say that to somebody, but like,
Well, you can as a counselor, though.
that's why I'm in the course, because you can't, but you can. Anyway, it's like there's this point being, it's like, yeah, people don't know how to recognize it as trauma. It's like, don't know what it is. But then of course, when I was in the course seeing all the symptoms of CPTSD, I was like, check, 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 check. And I'm like, okay, I even talked with my teacher in the course. I'm like, hey, but if you have somebody who like has never been raped, has never been like, specifically don't have like physical child abuse, like, they've never,
Yeah.
whatever things I listed before. It's like, you don't get, if they have symptoms of PTSD or like CPTSD that are obviously not, if they're not like a neurodivergence issue. Sometimes, you know, issues with like ADHD and things like that can be, sometimes they can be connected with trauma, but sometimes they're not, and they can be misdiagnosed. But sometimes people are having severe, like, CPTSD issues and problems and severe anxiety and depression and, like, you know, insomnia, and like obviously something's wrong. And it's like you have to be able to look at their life in an honest way and like see trauma not through a linear lens, not through like limited lens. You've got to look at like, what did they experience? Like, just hear about it. What did they experience? And like, when I look back at like my life, I'm like, it's incredible, like the isolation. And even I was reading this, we had to read this incredible book for our class, which I recommend to anybody who wants to know about trauma and recovery. I think it was just called Trauma and Recovery by Judith Herman. Incredible book. And it mentions like cult abuse a lot in the book, and cult indoctrination, which I really appreciated. But it was showing how like the trauma of it is like the trauma of isolation, essentially. Brainwashing and isolation. It makes you feel because trauma, the essence of trauma is disconnection from self and from others, from the world. And when you kind of are when you kind of are like brainwashed to believe that you are special, you're special and you're different, you're special, you're different, then it disconnects you from not only the parts of yourself that are not different, human, that are the same. That's traumatic. It's so isolating that disconnects you from your own body.
Right.
And then it can also then disconnect you from the rest of the world and the people that you love, but you're told that you can't possibly love because they're lower than you. It's like that's traumatic over years and years and years and years. It's incredibly isolating, and isolation over time is traumatic. It's like it's a prisoner thing, you know. And it's like, but it's psychos. It's like it exists only in the mind, and that can be really heavy duty. But recovery from that is very, very similar to recovery from any trauma, which is safety, remember, like grief and reconnection. So anyway, so all that to say, I really feel drawn. I feel like if there's a place where I feel drawn to working with people, it's like recovery from things that people don't necessarily like. I feel like there's a lot of trauma work for like victims of like domestic physical abuse and rape and like war vets, and I don't know, also are largely ignored. And there's holes. I don't want to be like everybody, you know what, that's all fine. There's holes in all those
Right.
big holes, but there's, I feel like one of the biggest holes is like people, which what as I've experienced is like recovery from, you know, highly controlled religious organizations and from like mental and emotional abusive relationships with families.
Even as you were describing that, I was like, it doesn't even have to be that controlled of a religious group. I mean, that's the message of most religious groups, right? We are special. They don't know, you know, they don't know any better. We have to save them.
I'm trying to be politically correct. And also just respectful of like, I do believe that it's possible to ascribe to a spiritual path and spiritual practices that are very beautiful and regulating and supportive and promote a feeling of empowerment and safety, without you know, prescribing to the like, I'm better and everyone else is less kind of mindset. Also, there's a lot of gray area. You know, I know in 3HO we were kind of, they're like, no, that's not what we're doing, but they really were. You know, it's like, but still, that's not to say, I'm like, hey, if someone wants to go take Kundalini yoga teacher training, go ahead. Like, honestly, it's a fantastic yoga practice. Like, I just feel that the danger comes when it's like, when it's just like, you know, you are now better because you're doing this. This is so much better than all the things. I'm even facing it in my therapeutic training where I, you know, part of our thing, it's also one of the reasons I'm loving being trained to be a counselor. is because as a counselor, we're actually encouraged to include lots of different modalities and explore lots of different modalities. Because if you even go into like, IFS training or like, a TIST, what's it called? Well, no, TIST is okay. But this other one, I'm not even remembering it. I was like, ooh. They're fantastic modalities. Just like Kundalini yoga is a fantastic modality of yoga.
Yeah.
But it's like, they're kind of like, this is the best way. It's the best. You can't heal without doing this.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, okay, well, that's when it's harmful. That's people like, that's when you're going wrong, where it's just like, actually what we need, we know. It's actually all about empowerment. It's about, fostering, like finding and supporting and respecting and fostering our own and each other's autonomy and ability to give ourselves what we need. And it's like, if the particular tool and practices from one religious faith works really well for you to do that, fantastic, more power to you. Do it forever, great. And that's no problem. But it's like, you just have to tread carefully.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on the matter.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for, I'm going to stretch. Thank you so much for joining me again and sharing about your journey through counseling. I'm really excited for you. I also feel like you're going to merge the music in a way that hasn't been done before. That's what I was getting. Like, it has to be, because why else would you need to do it? It has to be yours.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited about that. I feel that way too. And I don't know what it is, but I'm excited for me to find it.
Yeah, me too. So yeah. Do you want to share with people how they can connect with you you're still doing readings, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so my website is nirinjanastro.com. So it's just my name, Nirinjan, astro.com. It's super easy to just find out about what I do on my website, super easy to book, and it's just like, it's very streamlined. I do my sessions over Zoom just because there's people from all over the place. So it's very easy to book. Yeah, I still am super excited about doing that. I would love to work with anybody and everybody, and super like all inclusive of everybody's everything. And now having a better foundation and being trauma informed in my work. Not that I like wasn't before, but I'm better, more now, which I'm happy about. And also, yeah, so and just but it definitely being clear that I'm not a counselor yet. I'm not a certified counselor yet. It's still astrology-based life coaching, but I do approach it with a trauma-informed intention, and approach it with empathy and respect and person-centered style. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want to know what you should do, best person to come to. But
don't go to someone who wants to tell you what to do.
Yes, don't just tell if you want, exactly.
Unless you want to know what we've been through.
Yes, exactly. Yes, if you want someone to tell you what to do, then if you want someone to tell you what to do, definitely I would be happy to talk to you, because that can help you figure out how you are exactly the person to tell yourself what to do. So that's
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nirinjan.
And thank you, Porter. I enjoy this always.
Yay. Me too. All right. Well, this was fantastic, and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, bye. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.